howdy, and welcome back to another Sourdough Saturday. I'm Catherine, the Aerogarden Homesteader. So, still on the hunt for what I would consider a perfect bread loaf, sourdough style. So everyone's got their own preferences, so I'm just going to keep pecking away at different bread recipes. So I'm starting this one kind of later in the evening because it has an overnight rise, so it's a slightly different way of making the sourdough, and I wanted to give that a try. So it calls for 500 grams of bread flour, and I don't have bread flour, so I'm going to add some Vital Wheat gluten to bring it up to 500, or 510 as the case may be. Okay, calls for a tablespoon of sugar. There we go. Zero that out. 65 grams of bubbly active starter. So it's not quite as bubbly and active as I would want it right now, but it's got to go all night, so I guess we'll see. Let's start with this. Oh my goodness. That's pretty darn close. I don't think this is going to take... I think this is going to take more than all night, honestly. Okay, well, we're going with 71, because that's what came out. Then, we need 300 grams of warm water or milk. I guess we'll just do the water. Might do some milk. Okay, I got warm water and cold milk. So I'm going to put in a little bit of milk. Milk does actually help soften it up. So I'm going to go about half milk, half water. This should get me to 300. There we go, 300. And last but not least, it calls for a tablespoon of oil or butter. I'm just going to plug in a little oil, get my tablespoon of oil. That's probably good enough. And then I need to mix it up to a shaggy dough. It was awful dry. It's starting to come together. Okay, it's going to need a little more water, I think. Okay, I'll put in like maybe a tablespoon. It's awful stiff. Okay, we'll give that a quick little knead in the bowl, and then I will let it rest for like an hour to 2 hours, and then it needs to go overnight at room temperature. And hopefully we will have a bread we can shape tomorrow and bake off. It looks awful dry. I'll put just a tiny bit more in. Give that a quick work and then let it sit. Okay, that needs to sit and rest, and then it needs to be kneaded. Make it nice and smooth. Be back in about an hour or so. So of course I noticed that I didn't add salt. It's a good thing I noticed that, because you need salt. So I'm going to knead that in later, but this is my reminder to make sure that gets kneaded in really well. So there we go. It'll just be fine without the salt for the hour. It might actually help it rise better, but then I will need to give it a knead. It is the following day. I went and kneaded the dough last night. It was kind of late, so I didn't want to do a lot of talking and wake, one of my kids up. So it is time to get this going. Hopefully it has risen enough. It actually did take more than 10 hours. So it was supposed to take 8 to 10 hours. I think for my kitchen, my conditions, I need to put in more starter. Either that or I need to make sure my starter is like really active and bubbly. So maybe it was maybe it had passed the peak, but that's something I would need to work on. So I did like the ease of this recipe because it literally was mix it and let it sit for an hour or two, and then give it a knead, which I did. It was about 5 minutes, not quite, of kneading to get it all nice and smooth. Plus I had to knead my salt in, so I had to give it a little extra to make sure that was in well. So don't forget the salt. And then it went overnight for, let's see, I put it on for, so it's been 13 hours. So that's a little more than what the recipe says, but it's not an excessive amount. I think in the long run, it's probably better for it to go long than for it to overproof. So that's really what it boils down to. I would rather it go a little long than overproof, because I have a problem with overproofing. So I'm going to get this to go about as wide as the pan. I'm going to bring the edges in. It doesn't need to come in a ton. Try to press out the bubbles. Alright. I'm going to bring it towards me and press. Bring it towards me, press. Keep doing that. Press out more of the bubbles. Okay, that does kind of make kind of a weird little thing, but we'll just tuck the ends under. There we go. Kind of a little saggy in the middle. I didn't quite put it in far enough in, I think. Okay, so let's tighten everything up. I greased my pan because I have had nothing but problems with this non-stick pan. Like literally everything sticks to it, so I have to grease my pan. I am going to get this covered. It is supposed to take an hour or two. So we'll see, because like I said, my house is cold, my kitchen's cold. We keep the house temperature around 67 or 68, kind of depends what day of the week it is. At night it goes down to like 63, so that doesn't surprise me that it took a little longer than usual, but I'm actually going to preheat the oven. So my oven doesn't have a proof feature. What I do is I turn it on the lowest setting and I count to 30. Then I turn it off. That gets it just warm enough that I can do like a bit of a rise. So that's what I'm going to do, and then I'll just keep an eye on it so it doesn't, dry out. But I will cover this. I will bring you back to show you. I think we want it to go just above the lip here. So as you can see, I don't know if you can see that. There's a ways to go. But I want to make sure I don't overproof it this time. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. This is after 3 hours. So I'm a little bit over the top. I'm going to chicken out at this point and put it in the oven just so I'm not overproofing it. So 375 for about 40 minutes. I will show you how it looks when it comes out. The bread turned out beautifully. I loved this technique of starting it the night before. I need to fiddle with the recipe a little bit. It tastes fine. Tastes like sourdough. But I feel like the crust could use some covering during the baking process to keep it a little softer. And I do think adding milk and butter would help soften up the crumb a little bit more. But it turned out beautifully. I didn't overproof it this time, which is a miracle. So I think this is a great technique if you're busy, because I could totally see starting this the night before, shaping it in the morning, giving it a little bit of rise time before you have to go off to your day, and then proofing it the rest of the day in the fridge and cooking it off for supper or dinner. For me, I had the time during the day to just allow it to proof for however long it needed. It turned out really nice. It tastes great. I'm happy with it. But I do want to try some changes to the recipes. So that's just me. I just like to fiddle with things. I'm an experimenter. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you next time on the Aerogarden Homestead.